Hi, today we're starting a brand new series where we're going to hopefully create from front to back a whole new game mode in the Lyra Starter project. So we chose to try the 3v3 mode as a foundation for bringing some new features and capabilities into the Lyra Starter project, teach a few different concepts. So let's get started. So first, I have to step back and think about okay, what do we want to highlight in this new playlist? What are some of the capabilities that we need to develop in order to make a 3v3 a viable, playable round? So the first thing we need is a map, and we need to have a balanced map where the left and right sides of the map are identical, so no one team has advantage over the other team based on the overall geography of the map. Second thing we need is to set up a brand new gameplay experience. These are kind of the building blocks of a different game mode. And so we'll, in this video, set up all those basic copies of the assets we need in order to start this series. We need a user-facing experience so that the 3v3 mode can be shown in the main menu and then selected by players. The first major thing we need to change is the scoring method. Typical elimination or control point have very unique scoring methods. And in our case, for 3v3, we have to define the new dynamics of how we're going to score a round. We need to change our in-game UI. So we'll have to update the scoring at the top center of the screen to show where we are from a team versus team perspective, what's the current elimination count by team, some different visual UIs for the top of the display. We're going to incorporate a spectator mode where once a player is killed, they can opt to enter into spectator mode and follow their teammates. There's a few things we're going to do there to make sure that it's fair and balanced between teams. So basically, we'll lock them kind of over shoulder of any of their living teammates and allow them to spectate from that perspective. We're going to put loot boxes in. So we're going to have a moment where after a round is over or after the match is over, the teams will unlock loot boxes that they can interact with and be rewarded for their participation and results of the match. Then we're going to create 6 playable characters, each of them with some level of uniqueness. We're not sure how deep we'll go into that in this series, but 6 characters that you can choose from. And then with that, we will have to modify the startup sequence. And so at the start of a match, the players will be presented with the 6 characters to choose from. Once a player on their team selects and locks in a character, then that character is no longer available for the other players on that team. So of the 6 characters, 3 of the 6 will enter the match, but you don't know which 3 the other team has picked. And so you'll have to pick a little bit blindly against what the other team might be bringing to the table. So that's what we're going to attempt to cover in this series. Don't know how many chapters it will be. We'll work our way through it piece by piece and hopefully get to the end with a functioning 3v3 mode. All right, some key design decisions that are setting the foundation for this series. As in all 3v3 modes, once a full team is eliminated, that particular round is over, and the other team is awarded a point for winning a round. With this model, you can still have an epic comeback moment, right? So your 2 teammates can be down. You might be the sole survivor. You can still win the round for your team by defeating the other remaining players on the opposite team. So therefore, when a player is dead, they should enter into spectate mode because it's no fun to just sit there looking at the ground for 3 to 5 minutes. Basically, to keep the dead players engaged, they can follow the remaining player around the map and see how they're doing and whether or not they think this is going to be an epic comeback. We need a time limit so that you can't just sit and camp out and not do anything. Not sure what to do on the end of the timeout, whether we push around and not have any score, go into some kind of overtime. We'll have to figure that out as we go along. And then some thoughts on why you might pick this mode from a menu when you're playing. So if we create some random maps or some rotating maps, then that allows frequent players of the mode to learn a bit about the map and get a bit of an advantage. And so coming back to play maps over and over again so that you become better and better at the map is one element of why you might pick this mode to play. The maps themselves should have some pickups, some health. This shouldn't just be a straight shootout to the death. So rather than regenerative health, we're looking at, you can retreat, regroup with your team, and come back stronger. And then we chose a match best of 3. And the reason we're going to do best of 3 is it really keeps the losing team engaged. If you do a best of 5 or best of 7 and you're down 2 matches or 3 matches, you're likely going to quit. And so to avoid quitting, we're keeping it to a best of 3. That way, if you lose the first match, you can win the second match, and then you move to the third match with the potential to win. If you lose the first match and the second match, you're out. So that's fairly quick and painless. But then basically both teams can always win through each of the 3 rounds. All right, and then as we said earlier, winning team will get a loot box. At the end of each round, we'll award some level of a randomized loot box. Losing team should also get a smaller, maybe a bronze loot box for playing, just to keep them engaged and keep them going. And then the overall winning team at the end of the match will get a bigger or broader loot box. So we're using the words round and match specifically. Round would be 3 players versus 3 players. The round is over when one team is dead. The match is the best of 3, where once one team has 2 wins, the match is over. All right, so as we go through the video series, there's a couple of priorities that we're focusing on. The first priority for us is the basic framework, getting the game rules right, and getting the in-game visuals right. So by the time we get through our priority 1s, we should have a relatively functioning mode. We'll be using Manny through the first set of priorities, so we're not going to touch the character development until after we get through those first set of priorities. So the first priority is our basic functioning 3v3 mode. Then we're going to move into our second priorities, which is the development of the 6 characters and the character selection screen, and debug and work through all the mechanics of picking and assigning different characters based on your selections. And then third, we'll deal with the loot box and sort of reward aspects of winning a round or a match. So in this video, let's put some of the basics on the table. So we'll start with sort of the basic framework. For the basic framework, we started by cloning the elimination content as the starter content because it's the closest game mode to a 3v3. So we cloned the elimination map. We called it 3v3 map. So that's the map that we're going to be using throughout this series. We then cloned the gameplay experience, and we'll have to make a few changes in that, but first we'll have to create some of the assets. We needed the 3 Lyra facing experience components. So the first one is the data asset that defines the user facing experience. The second one is the texture, which is just a unique loading screen for this mode. And then the loading screen, which uses that texture when you're loading into the game. So kind of cloning all of those assets from elimination and setting them up appropriately. And then you'll see on the gameplay experience, you'll have to change the ability set, the scoring method, and the scoring widget. But first we had to create those. So for those, we created our ability set. And in our ability set, we also copied the respawn because we don't want to respawn right away back into a game. In 3v3, once you're eliminated, you're eliminated. So that meant that we had to clone the gameplay ability respawn, which we called respawn spectate. And we had to clone the widget associated, the respawn widget that's associated with it. So those two classes were copied. And then the ability set grants you the respawn spectate as opposed to the elimination, which just granted you respawn. We then duplicated, which I think they were called team deathmatch scoring. So we duplicated the scoring class, which does all the heavy lifting of the scoring. And then the scoring widget, which we're going to then modify to meet our purposes at the top of the screen for our 3v3 mode. So that's kind of setting up all the duplication. We then jumped into changing the scoring BPs. So the only thing we've done up to this point in setting this up is some changes to the scoring BP, and we'll show you that, and respawning. So when you open up the scoring blueprint, there's a couple of nodes that it just makes logical sense to right out of the gate change the way that the starter project was doing it. So because we know we have 6 players coming into a match, then we can set the target score for a round to be 3 kills. We know that if you kill half of the 6, if you kill all of the 3 versus 3, then you've won the match. Sorry, won the round. We also fixed the match length, currently set to 5 minutes. There was some more complicated logic here that determined how many people were joining and whether that was sufficient enough players to elongate. So we just cleaned all that out of there, replaced it with these 2 fixed durations. And then to the far right, there was some logic that was loading in a data layer for incremental player spawn points. So if you had a large team, there was a data layer that would load in more spawn points around the map. We obviously don't need that since we know we're going to have 6 players every time. So we could go ahead and delete all the logic to the right of this that was about adding that data layer. As a result of that, we could eliminate the big team Boolean variable and the extra spawn points variable out of the scoring blueprint. We no longer needed those. However, we did have to copy the target score, team score 0 and team 0 score and team 1 score. Now, the target score in the scoring blueprint is a rep notify. So when it changes, it will notify clients that it has changed. The other 2 were just standard variables. Well, we copied all 3 of those integers. So we have a target match score, and then a team 0 match score, and a team 1 match score. So basically duplicating those 3, setting the properties to be identical so that we have a score for a particular round, and then a score for the overall match. So if you scroll down in the scoring blueprint, you will see these victory conditions in their main logic and loop. So right after the victory conditions for team 0 or team 1, sorry, the top one is a tie. So this note indicates that if it's a tie, they end the round. In the elimination scoring, you ended the round and said it was a tie. So in our case, if it's a tie, we're not going to do anything. However, if one team or the other won the round, then we've added this logic to say, okay, depending on which team it was, either follow this branch or that branch and increase the team match counter by 1. If the team match counter is greater than the target match score, then broadcast that we've won. So this is just sort of how we've set it up for now for testing purposes. The victory conditions will likely move over here, and we'll likely replace those with a round one completed /1 versus a victory. The victory will only occur once you've completed the set number of rounds to win. All right, and then if you look at the victory defeated function, you'll see that it creates a gameplay queue, and it then sends that gameplay queue out to basically say that the match has been decided, and that's what triggers the victory or death screen, which are picked up here in the gameplay queues, where the gameplay queue match decided is triggered by that message, and it formulates the screen and shows you the decided message screen. So those elements of scoring have to be modified in order for us to have a 3v3 mode, right? We cannot complete one round and call it victory. We need to complete multiple rounds before we call it victory. All right, on to respawn. So in respawn, this is the respawn that you cloned from elimination. There's two basic changes at this moment. One is on the initialization, we're changing the widget. So the widget that shows up and counts you down from 5 seconds, we've changed to be our respawn widget, which we'll use when we start to get into spectating mode. And then temporarily, we took the respawn delay duration, which is a fixed number in this gameplay ability, and we just bumped it up to 5 minutes. And that's just purely temporarily so that we don't just respawn back into the game in 5 minutes. All right, so the last thing to take us to this point is if you go into your editor preferences and you want to basically test this in the editor, we set the number of bots to be 5. So the player, the tester, plus 5 other bots, 3 on the other team, 2 on your team. That forces it to be 6 players. And then we're allowing the bots to attack us so we can test the success criteria, the scoring criteria on one versus the other. So those are the setup changes that we've got to kind of set our foundation. Let's jump into the editor and play test that, and you'll see some of those happening. Okay, so over in the editor, we have our 3v3 map loaded up. We have its game experience set to our 3v3 game experience. And as we said a few minutes ago, we have 5 bots that can attack us. So let's go in and attempt to win a round. All right, so I'm on the red team. And I am horrible. All right, thankfully my bots beat their bots while I did absolutely nothing. Now let's get ahead and get eliminated quickly. All right, and you can see the spectating respawn timer counting from 300. Again, we won't count until 5 minutes later. So far, the blue team has 1 score, which is me. And they won again. So clearly, I am a problem. All right, so since I'm so horrible, let's turn off their ability to attack. I'm just setting the ability for our bots to attack me off. Let's play again. My guys, their guys. Red team has 2 wins. And red team is victorious. All right, let's test launching it from the menu. So we're going to launch the Lyra front end. And this is the same game client that we used in our other series where we went through a lot of different capabilities. So our login screen, we'll log into our persistent data layer, which is covered in the other video series. Let's play a match, start a match, and then if I scroll over, here's our new 3v3, our new loading screen, and we should be loaded into the 3v3 match, still using Manning because we haven't done it. And there we are. All right, so the loading in seems to work. And loading back to the main menu. All right, so all the basic setup seems to be functioning. Okay, so that's all we were going to cover in this very first video. So if you're going to follow along, hopefully you've been able to clone your assets, set up your widgets and your scoring, and been able to run a successful test run to see that your assets are being used as opposed to the standard assets. In the next video, we'll start to work through the changes to round versus victory and changes to the UI to show you how many rounds you've won on your way to winning a match. So thanks for joining this series. If you like this series, give it a like, leave a comment, and we'll keep pushing forward to complete this mode. Thanks for watching.